Here are some highlights of the latest episode of the YoJoeShow Podcast.
The government reopens and prominent officials admit there are aliens, controversial vaccination discussions, and a peanut allergy surprise.
Join thousands shocked by the YoJo Show's unfiltered truths.
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a while since we've had a kind of a nice one-on-one conversation like this. Everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, obviously, to you and family and everyone else and our entire audience. So there's a lot of things to be thankful for. We are thankful to be here.
Yes, that's of minor importance.
There's actually a purpose to this holiday, and who better than Jesse Waters' man on the street, John, out and finding out what people are thinking this time of year. That's probably the best way to start.
Thanksgiving. Oh, sorry, my fault. I thought you were doing an intro. Do it again.
Okay.
Do it again.
Thanksgiving is this Thursday. What are you excited to eat?
Stuffing. That has to be the best. Mac and cheese.
Ew. Oh, for Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Probably pretty much anything. I mean, the stature speaks for itself. I ain't falling for none of these tricks, I'll tells you what.
Turn the cameras around, please. They never do it.
Who ate together on the first Thanksgiving?
People ate together.
Christopher Columbus. Was it George Washington?
And?
Lincoln?
The Pilgrims.
Also known as?
The Indians.
Why would you say that? That's not politically correct.
But that's what they were taught in school, but now it's people are
That's
not politically
horrible.
correct. I would never say that.
Bread. What did they cook it in? They didn't have all this technology. Turkey.
It was pizza.
Have your pizza?
Leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here.
Europe.
That's a continent.
It's not a country.
Ireland.
Spain.
England.
Turkey.
Why did the Pilgrims come here?
Spice trade. Discovery of America.
For religious reasons.
They were getting rid of the king.
No.
Really? Dang.
How did the Pilgrims get here?
Boat.
Black Friday.
I don't know. Like late?
Black tags on everything, right? Like, no?
Probably because everyone just blacks out and buys everything.
Big mistake. Big. Huge.
What are you thankful for on this Thanksgiving?
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I got a job today.
Grilled cheese.
And this time of year, a lot of people are going to obviously be watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And,
Yeah, that's a big one. Nope.
So you're in for a treat. So this is an epic. It was a show everyone would watch, right? And they had this one episode for Thanksgiving, which was KRP, crap. WKRP. Yeah, but it was funny. And
what a sight, ladies and gentlemen, what a sight. The copter seems to be circling the parking area now. I guess it's looking for a place to land. Oh, the humanity! People are running about. The turkeys are hitting the ground like sacks of wet cement. See, folks, I don't know how much longer the crowd is running for their lives. I think I'm going to step inside. I can't stay out here and watch this any longer.
Spooky.
The very first clip in the compilation is actually from the Seminole tribe of Florida. They have a large billion-dollar hotel shaped like a guitar.
Feel true laughter and just smiling a lot is super, super good for your health.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's why we have the happy ending every episode.
But shifting gears to some of the events that are happening, the most tragic, pretty crazy, right?
It's devastating for the families of those heroic guardsmen, and yeah, it's just horrible. Do we have a clip on the identity of the attacker?
So the two guardsmen, one is a male, one's a female. They're young, they're in their 20s, I believe. They're both alive, but in critical condition.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so get him out of a place where he might have wound up being killed, and here he is going and targeting troops. Despicable. So there was a media organization known as MSNBC, which now has rebranded because of a split in essentially a buyout that was happening.
But of course, there's so much controversy happening in the United States right now with ICE, who are also wearing uniforms and wearing masks. And so you don't know, people walking around with uniforms in an American city, there are some Americans that might object to that.
How could someone actually even say that? This is a professional news organization, and they're airing comments like that.
But that very much is not necessarily the case. There are rumors that he yelled, or reports actually, that he yelled Allahu Akbar while committing this attack. Allahu Akbar translates to Allah is great, God is great, if you want to say that Allah is God. But God is great seems like a relevant, peaceful, religious statement that religious people will say. So You can blame whoever recruited him years ago, maybe, that they didn't do their background, but that isn't relevant. Who you should blame is whoever acknowledged his passport in arriving to the United States. The fact that somebody worked with the U.S. forces doesn't mean that they have the ideologies and the mindset of the Western world. And if they do, they're welcome here. If they don't, I'm sorry. Maybe
at some point there's repercussions, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. The balance wasn't there, and there's a sheer large numbers of people. So now we're in a situation where, guess what? Some of them are going to be here without, like you said, they don't have the mindset to be one of us, so to speak, in this country, to paddle in the same direction. That's the problem. Okay, that's the problem.
There is one more note. There is one more very big problem that we should dwell some time on, and that is the fact, and that enables people to be radicalized, and it inspires them, it enables them, it motivates them to go ahead and do some of these heinous acts. Now, we are hardcore believers of free speech, right? But there's one exception, one notable exception to free speech, and that is incitement to violence. Or as a fascist or as a Nazi, then they could be liable for inciting to violence. And I think this is one thing that we have to put the boot down on, because we're all for free speech.
It's unfortunate that there are people that are being so reckless. Senator Mark Kelly, okay, who served.
Former fighter pilot, former astronaut.
Yeah. The actual people receiving the orders won't obey them. But the general public is hearing this, and it's giving the false impression that unlawful orders are being sent out and disseminated. Not accurate. They're just
it's endangering the lives of the people who volunteer and serve to protect us, and that is disgusting.
So there's a very positive outcome from these men and women in uniform being on the streets.
Definitely.
So in '79, it was an American Airlines flight, I think 191, and at the time it was discovered that so the engines on this is a tri-engine. It has an engine in the tail at the back. It has engines on each wing. And the question then is, can it be that pylon structure that holds the engines in place eventually fails? And they do have inspections that are required of these things, but it's not every month or maybe not even every year. The plane,
in theory, if they had proper elevation, they could probably just fly in a single engine, but not. And it could be that the flying debris also caused some ruptures to the structure of the plane.
And now we have to understand why that is. And out of abundance of caution, all of these aircraft, which are basically in the United States, operated by UPS and FedEx for cargo, have been grounded. And it doesn't mean that there won't be some other problem in the future, but the game is to always stay ahead of these things, catch them before they become a real problem.
90% of people have fear of public speaking. So people would prefer to be in the casket than the one to give the eulogy.
Exactly. There you go. But that being said, there are other things in the news that we've been following, obviously, and that some people thought would be catastrophic and may or may not be. It's left to be seen. And this includes the mayoral race in New York City, which now has been won by an individual who is openly socialist, has been accused of being communist.
No, you know what? Just because
I don't think that's good for the country.
I understand. But just because something is done by people in Africa doesn't mean it's always okay. But you said race baiting. It has nothing to do with race. So Sarah Palin used to say Obama palled around the terrorists, which was bullshit. But
the mayor that has taken over New York City is a Muslim that's going to take down the city that never sleeps. This city will turn into a forbidden place of darkness. The blood, sweat, and tears that the city of New York was built on will turn into a virtual refugee shelter for the radical Muslim ideology.
And I think you have to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make more than $1 million a year, and you do that by raising taxes by them 2%. And then you also increase the corporate tax of New York State to match that of New Jersey. So that takes us from about 7.25 to about 11.5%, which is what we see in New Jersey.
He can't do that on his own. You've previously said that you wouldn't be raising taxes. Have you reconsidered that stance?
No, I would say one energetic rally does not get me to change my positions, I assure you.
President Trump lavishing praise on New York City's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani after months of trading attacks and insults.
I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am. I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again.
And the billionaire president asked if he'd be comfortable living in New York under Mamdani.
Yeah, I would. I really would, especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
Because remember, it was just weeks ago when the president was threatening to withhold federal funding and to send federal troops into New York City if Mamdani won the election. And that meeting yesterday focused more on issues of shared concern like affordability, not their deep differences around crime and immigration.
Many people were very surprised to see how that played out. All right, Selena Wang in Washington for us.
It's funny, in that initial interview, it was very interesting, but you can tell that the journalist or whoever was sitting there, she was like so infected by the woke mind virus, and she was like, but please don't make him look bad. This is the city with so much potential, and it's been losing a lot of that recently, and this definitely won't help because Mamdani has no background of leadership whatsoever. Even though he tries to claim and to seem like he's an average Joe and he came from nothing and he built his way up, and he's very charismatic, he's very entertaining, he's got a beautiful smile, although maybe overuses it a little creepy, but he definitely has some kind of warm embrace, and he knows how to talk to people, tell them what they want to hear, and many other things. He basically supports Hamas, even though he won't openly say so, and he's regularly befriending terrorists, a lot of them, and radical jihadists. So, for example, we've been discussing free transportation. There is very few places around the world where public transportation even breaks even, let alone makes a profit. It is almost always almost completely subsidized by the government. So I think that there are some things that he can do that can make him very popular, and so this could be a pretty problematic situation. But I was curious to hear from you. What do you think about Hochul and the relationship?
So I think she's just being pragmatic. She's a politician more so than he is. So she knows what she needs to be able to do to thread the needle. It's a little tram sort of thing. Miami Beach, I think, has a free shuttle service. There are things like that. But New York is a very big city. So to just basically make it seem like all transportation is going to be free, good luck with that. He basically flipped everything and essentially, hey, I'll work with this guy. Hey, he's a pretty smart guy. Basically putting all the pressure on Mamdani. He's, look, hey, yeah, this guy should do okay. So guess if there's a failure or a problem, guess whose fault it's going to be? It's like the old adage of giving someone enough rope that they can hang themselves. It's like that. There's something to what happened, and everyone is shocked about it. And subsequent to that, authoritarian leaders, and
a lot, Kim Jong-un and Putin, and yeah.
He crossed over to meet the leader of North Korea.
But I think Trump he gets along with everyone. As long as you can treat him nicely and throw him a few compliments, he will smile at you and he'll throw a whole lot of compliments back at you. Like, people assume that he's a mean person and people call him that very regularly, but boy, can he give compliments, sometimes completely irrational compliments, but he knows how to make people feel good about themselves, especially when they kiss his ass. Trump mentioned that he's very rational, and just to quickly touch on that, in Islam, there's a concept called taqiyya, which basically means you're allowed to lie to further the cause. And the one last note is that Trump loves success. Whether you succeed in a good way or in a bad way, you're a tyrant or you're democratically elected. If you're successful, Trump sees in that success something to aspire to or to learn from. And we should all learn from success of all types.
And all this is on the tail end of a lot of things that have been happening, including the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Let's just take a sweep of some of the other news items that have been in the news cycle recently.
You're blaming the Republicans for the shutdown, but in point of fact, it's the Democrats in the Senate who are refusing to vote for the clean continuing resolution to fund the government for 7 weeks.
As I said at the beginning, he's like a rock. He's like a rock. The Republican base is sticking by Donald Trump at this point in time.
It really is interesting to watch his overall approval rating go down, but see this be completely constant here.
It is among independents. It is not among Republicans. You go back to 2013, 78% of Democrats supported Barack Obama, and it was 78% of Republicans who supported George W. Bush back in 2005 at this point.
So outrage in Chicago after video captures a mother and her 9-year-old son being harassed and then badly beaten by grade school children while walking near a school. We talked to 2 leaders of that Chicago community in just a moment, but first, let's go to Mike Tobin live there with the details. Good morning, Mike.
Finally, this mob of youngsters started to strike Korshwanda and her 9-year-old son. They were both knocked to the ground, and the beating continued.
It's just completely out of
Back when you
control.
were a kid, the kid would get spanked or receive some pretty severe punishment for not acting properly in school.
We didn't put in there, but there was also another woman now set on fire in a subway, this time in Chicago, by a repeat offender. It's been arrested 70-something times. And so it was premeditated, made his way onto a subway car and public transit and picked this woman, apparently randomly, poured gas on her as she ran off, chased after her, and set her on fire, which she then was, and I'm sure now still is in critical condition or is certainly severely injured from that craziness. And now on the heels of that, we have guardsmen being attacked
Exactly.
in our capital.
Yeah.
So it's
Chicago desperately needs guardsmen too, and then what if they're attacked there? You know what I mean? We don't want war.
Oh, absolutely. There needs to be some basic decorum, proper existence for the citizens to be able to safely walk down the street.
And we've discussed this in the past that if you don't release anybody who has 3 or 5 or 10 at least at most previous convictions for violent assaults, then you reduce crime by 99%. Release serial violent criminals out of jail.
Guess who's responsible? Not just the person in the accident, but the person.
Barman, ridiculously. Yeah.
The bar owner, the general manager, the server or bartender, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean,
there
maybe
must
if
be
there were
consequences.
if there were consequences, they'd be disbarred. They would do jail time, whatever it is. They'd have civil liability for some of this. Victims and victims advocates will tell you all day long that it's not an easy right to be a victim when you're confronted with having to deal with the criminal justice system. More. So Jake Tapper and other CNN hosts are starting to actually act like journalists and TV hosts and starting to actually say things a little more mainstream, around the middle, but maybe they're starting to move towards that sort of goal.
They're a lot of times on X, on podcasts, on other platforms. So they're inoculated against the brainwashing of legacy media.
Oddly, someone is still watching that MS Now. Someone's watching it, maybe 3 people, but someone's actually still watching that.
She's a phenomenal journalist. So we may see that once there's pressure, especially financial pressure.
And this has to do with the Epstein case and the files and so forth. Let's take a peek at some of that and the push now to release that information, all the information that's there. And she has a podcast and she's talking about him. Very interesting how she talks about him. Almost surprising. But I guess what I'll take from that is that he certainly was a very charming guy.
There are about 1,000 of us. It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Mitchell. This is CBS News 24/7. We are following breaking news. President Trump just announced on Truth Social he has signed the bill requiring the Justice Department to release the Epstein files.
So it's highly unlikely that there's any big bombshell there. But will there be other information? Everyone knows that prior President Clinton traveled numerous times. So it'll be something we all want to look at, and we'll keep following exactly what's being said. It certainly is important to get as much information out there as possible.
We basically know most of the people who were involved, and it's very clear that anybody who was involved with him before his first conviction, 2014 or something, he was a nice guy who donated to everybody, and he was friendly with everybody, basically anybody. We are seeing the cascading effects of this, and hopefully it will cause less situations of this to occur again in the future.
And we can talk about that.
Since last month, the U.S. military has been blowing up speedboats in the waters off Venezuela in what it calls a counter-narcotics operation. But the growing military buildup in the region suggests there may be another target: Venezuela's dictator.
We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way.
And hundreds more are missing. A number of people reportedly have been arrested. Holly Williams has the very latest.
The fire started this afternoon, jumping from one building to another, engulfing this high-rise complex, which was home to nearly 5,000. By the time night fell, it was an inferno, with more than 700 firefighters battling to control the flames, and one of them killed. That fire sparked a public outcry about safety standards. In Hong Kong, the fire department said some residents were unable to escape.
That is very important. And don't use bamboo scaffolding. This is a pretty decent takeaway now.
Yeah, common sense. Again, just inconceivable that buildings would be able to just have fire spread rampant like this from building to building. It's so many people living in tight quarters, but it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to watch. The story with Russia and Ukraine, and the main thing they're looking for.
I wouldn't put it that way.
They have territory that isn't even in the control of Russia that Russia's asking to get, and they may.
Yeah.
And
I didn't really see those in the 20-point plan, unfortunately.
So, but it is one of the main things that will be offered.
He mentioned that no accession to the EU or to NATO. It basically is under the assumption that there will be no international forces on the ground, which basically means that there's no validity to it. Because now the sanctions aren't working now to stop Putin. So the threat of kind of, hey, if you give us trouble, we will put the sanctions back up.
The discussion is that the alternative is that Europe would provide the protections, quasi Article 5 protection, so that they would, if something would happen, troops from, because in my view, I think Russia clearly in the future wants to come back and take another bite at the apple. So it's not like this ends forever. It ends for now. They gain some ground, things quiet down.
That they suck at military attack. And they were like, Ukraine was considered one of the weakest militaries in the world. And they've failed colossally at taking Ukraine. Because that is the only thing that could work, in theory, to deter the Russians from attacking again, at least for a decent amount of time. But
I think nothing else has worked. The diplomacy hasn't worked. And if they are bringing drugs,
arresting people sure hasn't worked yet.
Don't think twice about murdering people, beheading people, dismembering people while they're alive. I lived on the Mexican border for over a decade, and it was happening 15 minutes from my house across the border.
Yeah, the cartels are blowing up their enemies in the middle of busy city streets where a lot of innocent people are being injured. This is just boats out in the ocean. There's nobody to cry over. True, 100%.
So I found it ironic that Biden was like, they didn't win the election, they used voting machines and whatever else, which was what happened, in my opinion, in 2020. I don't think Biden won in 2020. But ultimately, it was the same exact thing in the same exact voting machines that we use here in the United States.
And I predicted the invasion of Ukraine when most people were saying it was just a training exercise, because the open intel was pretty obvious on that case. And right now, open source intelligence is indicating that the U.S., the amount of forces that they've amassed around Venezuela is not just to bomb some narco boats. But the government has been very kind of iffy, and they never clearly said it. They keep on claiming that it's just to fight the narco boats. Just from the amount of troops that have been amassed, it's not just to bomb narco boats. It does look like there's a serious preparation.
There's been a bombshell out of the UK regarding the BBC, and it basically how they made up, contorted, and lied on various different stories.
The BBC claims to be the pinnacle of impartial reporting, but what if there was an internal dossier that revealed that wasn't the case?
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight like hell.
But Trump didn't, in fact, say this at all.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell.
But irrespective of your personal views on Trump, the question remains, how is a national broadcaster funded by taxpayers on the premise that it will provide impartial reporting allowed to splice together content in a way that one of its own advisors said materially misled viewers? And we're not even done yet. In fact, the BBC themselves later published a report at odds with Panorama's own timeline.
These are the Proud Boys, another right-wing militia, seen a little earlier that morning.
Howdy, you boy!
Donald Trump will not appear for another hour or so, but they're already heading towards the Capitol.
Make your voices heard.
The BBC advisor who wrote this report claimed Panorama's editing was completely misleading, as Trump did not explicitly exhort supporters to go down and fight at Capitol Hill.
This is basically being Dr. Frankenstein to turn a man into a monster.
Yeah, whether they watch TV or not.
Yeah, this isn't the BBC's basically first time that they've been extremely discredited. Many times they work for Hamas propaganda, and they're the BBC's kind of journalists. There was a case just about a year ago where they made a whole documentary crying about how evil Israel bombs innocent Palestinian children. And Panorama specifically had many issues. Tom, it is time that the British people have the right to choose where their money goes and who receives public funding from taxpayers' money for public transmission, because the people in charge there definitely don't deserve it one bit.
Yeah, and you could say they're out of this world. Speaking about things out of this world,
we're one of the most outspoken voices pushing for these images from NASA. They're convinced it's just a comet. Are you convinced?
There is some glow in front of the object in the direction of motion, not in the direction of the sun, as we might expect from evaporation of pockets of ice as a result of illumination by sunlight, or the push of the gas that comes out of those pockets of ice opposite to the direction of the sun.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis.
Information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species. This is the biggest discovery in human history.
I made a point of making sure this doc didn't sensationalize the topic at all. We stayed super grounded, and moreover, that the United States is engaged in a high-stakes secret Cold War race with adversarial nations to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. And the stakes couldn't be higher for this situation. And
those are two bookends. One about the Atlas Comet and a controversial Harvard researcher who keeps always asking questions as to whether it's just a regular piece of debris in space or whether it's something more intelligent.
There are some of these comments that don't seem like comments in any way, shape, or form, just by the way they're acting. Specifically, like Avi Loeb was saying regarding the outgassing. So it was moving in a certain way, and usually the only way that the comet will move in that way is if the sun or another star melts the ice. So it's an external visitor. So there are some very interesting things here, and I definitely advise following Dr. Avi Loeb really closely, because he said before he ran in 2020 that he will release all these kind of UFO files. So it's almost obvious that there's some type of life in the universe aside from planet Earth. And it seems, according to this documentary, the answer is yes. And if so, that would be very kind of earth-shattering news, because it means that they may be interested in what happened if we caught them once. Doesn't mean we can catch them again.
So the documentary is quite telling. What's interesting is it was done over a number of years, and there's a lot of elected officials, some of which are still in office, who are openly speaking about what was unspoken.
There are a lot of people who are very smart and have very interesting stories of the things that supposedly happened in the 2000s.
So in the documentary, in the stuff that's
or the 1980s, sorry,
that there was at least one interaction at a military base, which involved CIA and Air Force, I believe, where they communicated with some aliens, supposedly. So much of the ocean is, we have no idea what's down there and what's going on. And there's these spottings of these visualizations of craft that are moving out of the ocean, up into the sky and back into the ocean. Downed aircraft, or whatever you want to call them, UAP. In fact, the FAA has a number for pilots to call, and there have been so many reports of these things. We used to call them UFOs. And ultimately, it's finally now the first time that people are coming forward and saying, this is what I knew, this is what I saw, this is who I spoke with. But if you believe any of this, and I can't imagine all these people would put themselves in front of a camera and say what they're saying, because ultimately it impacts a lot. It impacts potentially religion, philosophy, certainly science. So interesting story as it continues to evolve. We'll keep watching it.
We're going to keep monitoring it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I got to say that aliens is one of the topics that I definitely did a 180 about, and I changed my mind. I used to be completely, you remember when we met, I was in this staunch, this is all made up wacko stories. And then the more I investigated it, the more I discovered that, like a lot of conspiracy theories, it does seem fairly likely that there is a lot of truth to it.
I agree. And again, like everything, everyone can make their own decisions, but at least have the information and have these discussions so we know what's happening and not be ridiculed for asking questions.
I just got to say, if the worst the CIA is doing to shut people up is to embarrass them with funny stories and, about green men, then the CIA has improved. At least they're not taking people out in order to shut them up. So always question the experts. Always.
You can listen to them. Definitely should listen, but question. Don't blindly follow. And
exactly.
Let's take a look at it.
It is the concern that it's not safe. So I'm 55. I'm a healthy guy.
I got my COVID shots. Should I get a booster or no?
What number was that then for you? 7?
And would you get it?
No, I did not get the COVID booster shot.
Because you're concerned about safety, or why?
I don't need it. I don't feel like I need it.
Did you get a flu shot?
I do generally get the flu shot, but the flu efficacy ranges from single digits some years to 40-some% at best. If you're healthy, what's preventing you is the fact that you've got cellular immunity and you're healthy and you can withstand a common cold.
If you've had it in the past, you're saying, and you have natural immunity. And that's probably most people now, which is, I think, the point that you've made.
I would not take the flu shot, and I'll tell you why, because this is what Cochrane and BMJ have found. People who take the flu shot are protected against that strain of flu. They're 4.4 times more likely to get a non-flu infection. They're usually not getting the flu. They're getting something that is indistinguishable from the flu because the flu shot gives you something called pathogenic priming. And it primes you for coronavirus. If you they gave flu, they had a placebo group and they had a vaccine group because they wanted for military readiness to see if the flu shot was prophylactic against coronavirus. What they found is actually the people who got the flu shot were 36% more likely to get coronavirus. And that's not a lone study. If you get the flu shot, you're more likely
Publishing
to get
something like that, I might as well retire. I'd be finished.
I'm just curious, what in this data makes you think it will be as catastrophic to your career as you think?
The study was a bombshell.
18,468 subjects. 1,957 of them were fully unvaccinated. When comparing the health outcomes of the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, the vaccinated subjects were over 4 times more likely to have an asthma diagnosis.
4.29 times in the adjusted. And that seems, I've looked at a lot of studies, that's 3.26 to 5.65.
They also found 3 times the risk for atopic diseases,
which is kind of a subset of allergic diseases.
The autoimmune diseases this paper looked at include thrombocytopenic purpura, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, MS, multiple sclerosis, and Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Neurodevelopmental disorders.
What kind of numbers are we talking about? Do you remember?
5.5 times risk for neurodevelopmental disorders, 3 times the rate of developmental delay.
They found the same things I found related to allergy and autoimmunity. Also, 6 times more acute and chronic ear infections.
Because there were none in the unvaccinated group. The way that the mathematical formulas work, you can't have a 0 in any one group and be able to compare risk.
Amongst the unvaccinated group, there were 0 cases of ADHD. 0.
These ones are just mind-boggling. These conditions were not found at all in almost 2,000 unvaccinated kids. 0 brain dysfunction, 0 diabetes, 0 behavioral problems, 0 learning disabilities, 0 intellectual disabilities, 0 tics, and 0 other psychological disabilities in the unvaccinated.
Today we investigate one of the biggest medical controversies of our time, vaccines. There's little dispute about this much. Vaccines save many lives, and rarely they injure or kill. A special federal vaccine court has paid out billions for injuries from brain damage to death, but not for the form of brain injury we call autism, after all. He claims he told that to government officials long ago, but they kept it secret.
I did not believe that vaccines could cause autism. I didn't believe it.
A couple of points. So the Henry Ford Health study that was showing all the statistics and that hidden camera and so forth, there's been a lot of critique on that study, the follow-up timelines and a bunch of other things, which called into question some of the conclusions. Okay. Now they're coming out, and fair is fair. You come out and you publish a study or you promote a study, and then you have people critique it. And even if it doesn't show the entire truth, is it showing some of the truth? Is it showing something that we didn't know before? That is the issue that everyone is grappling with. We just want to know the truth. That's the theme of all of this. We just want to know the truth. I don't know if I've ever had a flu vaccine in my life. I don't think I did. I know when I was a paramedic, there were
Yeah,
certain
something
things I
like
was
that sound, but-
required to take. I don't remember if flu vaccines were one of them. So in other words, 90% of the time or more, might be 95% of the time, it won't work. And part of it's how they come up with these design of the vaccine for the upcoming flu season.
So
or
ironic.
some other infection.
Yeah, other flu-like case, exactly. Like, I think the majority of autoimmune diseases have something to do with our way of life and not necessarily are inherent in human societies.
Again, we're not giving medical advice here. We're not saying what not to do. We're not saying take this or don't take that. We're saying ask questions, have these discussions. So one of the examples we were talking about earlier is peanuts. When I was a kid, I don't remember any kids in school with me having a peanut allergy. Now let's take a look.
In the year 2000, the American Academy of Pediatricians recommended not giving peanuts to infants for fear of allergies. It was later discovered that, in fact, that was causing an estimated 80% of the allergies because the bodies were learning to treat peanuts as a foreign object. I asked Dr. Anthony Fauci about this back in 2019.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, now believes that telling families to eliminate peanuts actually made things worse.
I wouldn't say it was in error. I think what it was a judgment call that in the retrospect was the wrong call.
Now we have the first study showing the impact of this exposure. Already, you've got a 40% decline in peanut allergies. Peanuts have gone from the #1 most allergenic food, most kids affected, to #2. Eggs are now above it because they're remembering that earlier piece of bad medical advice. The American Academy of Pediatrics, they need to be out front, like loudly beating the drum on this.
It wasn't an error. It's just bad judgment. Okay, call it what you want to call it, but
you know what I mean. It turns out that trying to stop peanuts and peanut butter exposure caused the allergy to spike like that, and I think that many allergies are similarly caused by lack of exposure to certain things. And it is basically peanut butter puffs, and it's a fairly healthy snack compared to most. And the existence of peanut butter allergies in Israel is non-existent. There literally is no such a thing as peanut allergies in Israel. Everybody brings bamba to school. Everybody eats bamba in school, and nobody is allergic to peanuts unless they moved from the U.S. or something. It's been obvious for a very long time.
He couldn't say, he couldn't bring himself to say, our guidance was wrong, we've corrected it, we learned from our mistake. I think today it's timely to realize how we are maybe not that different in how we act, how we develop. We think we're so unique, but maybe we can learn by looking around us. The last one at the end was posted by Google. It's a Gemini animation, but it shows that in a conceivable way how even spiders are like we are.
No,
and nothing
like
like
that video of the snakes in its entirety is a phenomenal clip.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, if anybody hasn't watched that, it's definitely worth it.
And then earlier on, we had the very beginning, for those just listening to the podcast, we had the embryo of a dolphin, the human, evolving side by side. And it's remarkably similar up until the end stages. And you could see some traits in these animals that
the pufferfish engineering, literally engineering, using these shells to stabilize it so that the currents don't shift and shape the beautiful, essentially, nest that he's created for making love. And the more you investigate nature and the more you see similarities between all life forms, it makes evolution just so obvious. I grew up thinking that, hey, maybe your grandfather was a monkey, but mine wasn't. And the more you study the natural world, the more it just becomes completely evident.
Crab walk? Again? Last time.
The first ever GMC Hummer EV SUV.
Let me guess. You want to do that again?
It's one electrifying SUV.
It basically has twice the amount of batteries of any other electric SUV for kind of worse range, but it is a very impressive piece of engineering. It's ridiculously expensive, like GM unfortunately has been recently.
And as we wind down the episode, as we get to the very end, we like obviously putting some amusing things on there. This time of year, I guess it's timely to hear back from some of our prior presidents, wishing us all the best this time of year. Here is one from former President Biden.
This is a street side sign that says "Little Darlings, now auditioning federal employees."
Yeah, so it's a gentleman's club, aka also known as a strip club. So they're joking this. So it's a colorectal center. So it says, "We treat all kinds of assholes. Call us if you're living with a painful one." Cheney's first colorectal and gut wellness center. So again, that's a massive billboard, right? That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Say for the same colorectal center. What does this one say?
It says, "How's your life become a pain in the ass? Has your life? Call us. Let's get the bottom of it. Let's get to the bottom of it."
Yeah, has your life
Very
become a
cute.
pain in the ass? Call us and we'll get to the bottom of it. Do you recall who Joan Rivers was?
Nope.
Yeah, it'll be for your time. She was really funny. She was a very outspoken person, great sense of humor. She was being interviewed on a show I know you know nothing about. It's called Dame Edna.
They're lucky because they can stand up when they go to the bathroom. And they miss. How can they miss when they stand up? That's what I think you can tell what kind of a lover a man is going to be from the way he tinkles. If a man in a room...
Yeah, so that was... There's always been that adage. Women are always wondering how guys can make a mess and not hit the bowl if they're in the bathroom trying to pee.
There is some physics behind that, especially when they do it in the dark. But
yeah,
there
she's
are
in
some other
in a fully lit room. She has a point, right?
Yeah. But
what was supposed to be a prank on a teacher instead backfired on the students. A blindfolded half-court shot that is now the talk of campus and beyond.
Put that in the story too.
Are you kidding me?
It went in.
Did you see it?
I'm not kidding
you. Is that on tape?
Yeah.
That was perfect.
You are kidding me. What was supposed to be a prank on a teacher instead backfired on the students. A blindfolded half-court shot that is now the talk of campus and beyond.
So you get how these stories are connected?
Yeah, he's genuinely surprised.
He was reporting on someone
Yeah.
who basically did that. He didn't think he'd be able to do it. He just threw the ball. And so he obviously would, based on the prior discussion with Joan Rivers, this guy must do pretty good. He obviously got good aim.
He definitely has good aim.
Even without trying. So,
At least when not trying. I don't know. Maybe when he tries, his aim isn't that good.
have you ever had what you describe as a shitty day?
Definitely. More than once, unfortunately.
How bad could it possibly be?
I would say not as bad as being covered in shit, but I do have babies whose diapers I do change. Yeah, that's not the worst of it for sure.
Oh my god! Dodging people. Oh my god! Oh, what the? It's on my face! Oh my.
So
Yeah.
another reason
Quite
why
literally a shitty day.
better to ride a horse than be behind it. Most of the time that doesn't happen. Obviously the horse had diarrhea.
Nowadays they have some bags that they kind of hook on the back, and if it's the decent bags, if it's the bad bags, it just falls. If it's a decent one, it has something that covers from splashes, I assume.
But they do get gas sometimes. And
Yes.
if you're downwind, I'd rather ride a horse.
Yes, true. It's much more beautiful and meaningful of an experience as well.
Sometimes you wonder, are we getting anywhere? Is there a purpose to life? What's the purpose of life? What are we trying to do?
Have
Well,
baby.
you question what we basically get drawn to, what we get suckered into. Like, for example, social media, online gaming, all this other stuff. People get addicted, right? Quite a while back, someone had already figured that out long before they had the technology we have now. And this little invention is the prime example of that. Tell me you're not going to get hooked watching this. Ready? Here we go.
Basically, I'm giving up, and then the minute you back off, it pushes that rod or the button one more time, just so it remains in the position it likes.
And a reminder of determination, the value of determination. Don't give
Yeah.
up. Doesn't work the first time, try something different. It went faster, it went slower.
Yeah, different
Right.
approaches. Yeah.
Tried a few different things. So machine versus human, and the machine did pretty good, right? So perhaps it's a tease for the next episode where I think we are going to cover some AI related topics that we've been discussing that we want to cover, and really the evolution of AI and some of the things that are actually impacting the job market and the future of our existence. That's for
Yeah,
next.
possibly in the form of an in focus episode. keep your eyes out for that one. Yeah.
We'll see. We definitely want to cover it in some format. So that being said, I think we've covered a lot today, and I'm sure you have other things to do than just sit here and being on our podcast.
We appreciate the time you have spent with us. That's for sure.
We ready to have a couple other podcasts in the works, and we look forward to you joining us again. Until that time.
Episode 25, guys. It's a big one.
Yep, coming up. And 24. This is a wrap. We'll talk again soon. Yo, nice doing another one with you.
Yeah, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody, and enjoy your Thanksgiving with your awesome family.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be safe. Say don't eat too much, but it is
Eat
what
too
it
much.
is.
That's the point of this holiday.